Plot holes are the narrative equivalent of termites in a wooden house, undermining the structural integrity of the building. But unlike termites, there's this weird pushback against bringing up plot holes, something nobody in their right mind would do for something so structurally compromising for any other man-made construct. Writers and fans often dismiss them as nitpicking, but their presence is a glaring flaw that contributes to the integrity of a story. A plot hole isn't just a cute little oversight that can be brushed under a rug. It's a fundamental failure to maintain consistency in a fictional world. When a plot hole shows up, it doesn't just harm one part of the story, it calls into question the stakes, the characters, the logic of the world, and whether the writer even knows what they're doing. Let's start with the most obvious problem: stakes. Stakes are the backbone of any story. They tell the audience what's on the line, why the characters care, and why we should care. But the plot hole can obliterate stakes faster than Taco Bell obliterates my ass. For example, if we know that Thanos could use the Infinity Gauntlet to wipe out half the universe, but then they show sorcerers could cut off arms with their portals, the stakes evaporate. Oh wait, that's exactly what happened. Why should we believe anything matters when the writer clearly hasn't thought through what's actually important? A plot hole tells the audience that the rules of the story are just made up on the fly, so why should we invest emotionally? Then there's the issue of character integrity. Plot holes can destroy any sense of consistency in what characters can or can't do, what's in character for them, or what they supposedly value. Imagine a character who could vaporize others effortlessly, but then struggles to fight against a normal guy without any weapons. Oh, wait. Not only is that lazy writing, but it also makes the character seem like a complete idiot. Or worse, like the writer has no respect for the audience's intelligence. If characters don't behave in ways that align with their established personalities, abilities, or motivations, how are we supposed to believe any element of their character? A plot hole doesn't just ruin a single scene, it can retroactively call into question every decision that character has ever made. Plot holes can also rip apart the fabric of a fictional world. Every story operates within a set of rules, whether those rules are grounded in reality or entirely fantastical. The audience shouldn't have to care if the story involves dragons or time travel, as long as it's consistent. But introduce enough plot holes and suddenly nothing makes sense. If the rules of the world can be ignored whenever it's convenient for the plot, then why bother having rules at all? It's like playing a game where the ref changes the rules halfway through. It's impossible to get an understanding of the game. Shouldn't we understand the plot of the film? Isn't the goal to have a cohesive narrative? Fictional worlds rely on internal logic to function, and a plot hole is a grenade tossed directly onto that foundation. And let's not forget how plot holes can easily affect the audience's believability of what's possible. When a story contradicts itself, it's impossible to trust anything the writer is trying to convey. Let's take a quick look at Indiana Jones and the depraved delusions of a mangy mangold. In that film, Indy gets shot right in the chest near his heart. People claim that he was shot in the shoulder, but that's clearly his chest. But we know from the previous films in the series that being shot in the chest is fatal. So let's be honest with ourselves, this is a flaw. This film disregards what is or isn't possible with regards to physical limitations of humans. Some defenders of this train wreck use the excuse that this is the series where Nazis have their heads explode because of a god box, a guy withers away because he drank some water, and a communist disintegrated because an alien gave her the light skin stare. But just because magical entities exist in this world does not mean it's a freebie for the writers to disregard basic facts of existence without putting the legwork to justify it, because that's just cheating. Plot holes make it impossible to know what's real within the context of the story, and the uncertainty can kill any chance of immersion. We might as well just assume Indy can grow wings and fly around the world, since he apparently gained the ability of superhuman healing between the events of the films. Now, this is where I have to vent one of my biggest frustrations in media discussion. Plot holes are often described as not that big of a deal or necessary sacrifices for the sake of storytelling. Oh, really? So we're just supposed to believe that the writer's inability to maintain basic consistency is somehow an artistic choice? Plot holes are not quirks, nor are they features of the story. They're a glaring neon sign that tells us the writers just don't give a fuck. Writers who excuse plot holes are basically admitting they didn't care enough to solve their own narrative problems. If you can't respect your own story enough to keep it coherent, why should anyone else respect it? Want to know why I have no issue mocking the hell out of films that have narratives that don't even try to make sense? I should probably discuss this thing on the screen. This is a video by the pretentious YouTuber Patrick Willems, a man whose entire personality is, "I went to college!" In this neurotoxin of a video, he argues that plot holes don't matter, and honestly, it's one of the most annoying attempts at defending lazy writing that I've ever seen, and one of the most damaging arguments about storytelling I've ever seen as well. He rationalizes plot holes as acceptable as long as the story is emotionally resonant or whatever, which sounds deep until you realize it's just a fancy way of saying, shut up and consume. He also spends a lot of time pretending people who criticize plot holes are nitpicky nerds just obsessed with minor details, which is just a great way of saying, I don't have an actual argument, so I'll just insult people who point out valid flaws instead.
Hey, how did Indiana Jones survive clinging to the outside of that submarine?
Patrick, that's a U-boat going on a short-range voyage. It didn't fully submerge. He makes some really weird statements like this throughout the video. He'll strawman what the criticism is or point to a general bad faith criticism like the submarine one, then further strawman those arguments. For example, he makes a weird defense of The Dark Knight Rises, claiming that Bruce Wayne magically getting back to Gotham after escaping Bane's prison doesn't matter because we don't need to see it, explaining the concept of fucking montage.
One of the earliest cinematic developments was the concept of montage. The idea is that when two images are presented in sequence, the audience understands that they occur chronologically and will mentally fill in the time between scenes.
No, Patrick, it's not about seeing it. It's about knowing how he got back. We know he got back to Gotham. We see him there. The issue is that the movie goes out of its way to tell us that Gotham is locked down. The bridges are gone, the city's under military quarantine, and Bane has control over everything. And Bruce? He's halfway across the world, broke, injured, and presumably doesn't have his back credit card on him. But then, somehow, he just shows up in Gotham like he teleported there. That's not a nitpick. That's a gaping hole in the logic of the story. If Bruce can casually waltz into Gotham, then why are we supposed to believe Bane has an ironclad grip on the city that undercuts the stakes entirely? He also poorly defends A Quiet Place, on the basis of characters just making silly, goofy mistakes because humans aren't logical, which isn't even true. All humans follow some form of internal logic, so to spin this as an issue of humanizing characters at the expense of basic fucking common sense is an insane point to make. Full disclosure, I haven't seen A Quiet Place, but I've heard enough to know that it's got issues. From what I understand, the whole premise is that these monsters hunt by sound, right? So how come the family doesn't just live by the waterfall? That wouldn't be an issue if they didn't introduce it, so this is a fault of the film. I shouldn't need to watch the movie to know that it's inconsistent. Willem shrugs this off and says that it's fine because apparently being logical is at odds with being human, which, again, is just not true at all. If we're establishing this family is apparently pretty resourceful at their survival tactics, it stands to reason that they'd be smart enough to put their kids in an optimal position to survive. Not sure if I'd call that a plot hole, but I'd call it a massive issue of characterization. Here's the thing. Emotional beats don't mean anything if the logic of the story does not hold up. If the writer is intending for the audience to have an emotional connection to the character, they should probably put in the work to make sure that the logic of the character is internally consistent with itself. Otherwise, you aren't watching a character. You're watching some undefined entity that floats around and could randomly change at a fundamental level on a dime. So why should I get invested? His notion that we're watching movies wrong for daring to invest in the mechanics of the story is so misguided I cannot believe anyone takes him seriously. And let's be real, this entire video comes off as Willem's getting pissy at people criticizing The Last Jedi, since this video released during his peak copium phase. He doesn't like that his favorite movie got torn apart for its endless anti-logic, so he made an entire video just to justify why plot holes don't matter. But sorry, Patrick, they do. You can't have meaningful stakes if the rules of the world or characterization keeps changing whenever it's convenient for the plot. If the character's actions don't follow any logical consistency, then don't expect everybody to think the payoffs are earned. Plot holes aren't just nitpicks, they're cracks in the foundation of the story, and no amount of emotional manipulation can fix that. The existence of plot holes doesn't just hurt one specific element of the story, it can undermine everything. Stakes lose their weight, characters become inconsistent, and the world stops making sense. And we're left questioning why we even bothered to care in the first place. Plot holes don't just happen. They're a result of lazy writing, poor planning, or even both. And if that sounds harsh, good. Writing isn't easy. And that doesn't mean the audience should just be expected to overlook glaring flaws because the writer couldn't be bothered to fix them. A plot hole is more than just a minor flaw. It's a fundamental betrayal of the audience's trust. When people consume a film, they're agreeing to suspend their disbelief and enter a world the writer has created. A plot hole breaks that agreement. It tells the audience, none of this actually matters and we don't care if you notice. And once that trust is broken, it can be damn near impossible to get back. Obviously, it can depend on the scope of the plot hole. Sometimes it's something small, but more often than not, if the plot hole is noticeable, it means that it has a bigger impact. So no, plot holes aren't just little quirks, and you aren't watching movies wrong by noticing them. They're evidence that a story does not work, and they deserve to be treated as the serious flaws they are. Anyways, that's all I've got for today's video. If you liked it, be sure to like and subscribe, comment down below your thoughts, and join my Discord server and my channel memberships. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.